Hey there, welcome to Think About Thursday. Here we are, we've hit August. Who would have thought we'd get to August so quickly? Today's conversation is about perimenopause and whether or not you might be in perimenopause. It's an interesting thing once we hit anywhere from maybe from 35 onwards, generally from 40 onwards, you are potentially in perimenopause. Potentially, obviously, it's going to be different for every single person. What's interesting or what's frustrating is when there's a bunch of things going on for you, a bunch of things changing, but you don't necessarily know what they mean, or why they're going on, or why you don't feel as well as you did 10 years ago, for example. There's no blood test to confirm perimenopause because the hormones are fluctuating so much that GPs don't want to do a blood test because what it tells you one day could change the very next. So that makes sense to me. I can see why they don't like to do blood tests. There's nothing specific. There's no obvious marker from a perimenopause perspective. And depending on your GP, if you have a regular GP, Nick, I would I would like you not to be perimenopausal if you don't want to be perimenopausal. If you are, I can't make it go away itself. And by the way, nice to see you. Thank you for jumping on. What I can do, though, most likely, is help with some of those symptoms. So the more we reduce the symptoms so that perimenopause is a better transition, the better you will feel. So, depending on your GP, why can I not say GP today? They may or may not know much about perimenopause. So some of them will just say, oh, just go back on the pill. That's all you need to do. Go on the pill and just wait. And then at some point, you'll come off the pill and you'll be in menopause and you will have skipped all the perimenopause stuff. Now, that's all well and good. However, when you go on the pill, that suppresses all of your natural hormones. And your natural hormones are actually super beneficial for you. When you are cycling regularly and cycling nicely and creating all of your beautiful hormones, particularly estrogen and progesterone, they're the main ones we talk about, but there's lots more. But those two in particular, they have so many protective benefits for us, for our bones, for our heart health, for potentially reducing risk of breast cancer, for our mental health, because progesterone helps keep us calm. All of those things are going on. And, sorry, just flicking my screen up and down. So if you jump onto the pill for no particular reason other than to try and manage the symptoms of perimenopause, then you might lose out on the benefit of all those lovely hormones. Don't get me wrong, I'm not suggesting that nobody should go on the pill, because for some people it is a very good solution if they still need it as contraceptive, for example, and a whole host of other reasons. However, if you go to your GP saying, I think I might be perimenopausal, what can you do to help? And that is the only thing they offer you, then it is worth exploring other avenues to see what else might be available to help you first. Now, here's the thing to think about. It's a bit warm in here. Perimenopause is a natural part of life. So it's going to happen for most of us, right? Sometimes you might surgically avoid it if you have to have a hysterectomy, or if you have, in my case, I had breast cancer a few years ago and chemo pushed me straight into menopause. So perimenopause didn't really happen for me very much. I was just sort of teetering around the edge of it. So not necessarily everybody goes through it if something else gets in the way. But for the most part, let's assume that you're going to go through it. It is a natural part of life. Some people refer to it as a second puberty because there's so much hormonal fluctuations going on at the time. And so given that, the more information you have about it and the more you know what you can do to help manage the symptoms, the better, rather than trying to hide it. Imagine saying to your teenager, when they're going through puberty, oh, let's just squash down all those hormones and let's pretend that none of your symptoms exist, or let's just hide them all. We don't do that with our teenagers. We acknowledge that teenagers are going through a stage of complete hormonal flux, and we try and help and support them through it. We need to do that more with perimenopause as well, so that it's less of an issue, and we need to talk about it as much as we can as well, so that it's not so sort of mysterious. So, The thing with perimenopause as well, everyone's experience is different. Everyone has different signs and symptoms. Some people sail through it without noticing anything, and other people really struggle. There's a bunch of things that can also impact on the severity of your symptoms, and those include things like your stress levels. Pardon me, which is, I don't know if ironic is the right word, but which is, maybe it is ironic, because quite often at this age, if you are dealing with, maybe you've got teenage kids, maybe you've got aging parents, maybe you've got a demanding job, your stress levels may be higher than they've ever been, potentially, and that makes perimenopause symptoms worse. If you have thyroid issues, they actually have significant interplay. The thyroid can be impacting the perimenopause symptoms. Perimenopause hormonal changes may be impacting the thyroid as well. So that can have an impact. If you're not sleeping well, and again, bidirectional there, because perimenopause can impact your sleep, and then lack of sleep can impact the symptoms. If you have gut problems and you're not digesting your food properly, or you're not getting rid of toxins properly, not excreting your toxins properly, not processing your hormones properly, then that can worsen the symptoms as well. So, and just your general health overall. If you're not in your peak health, and how many of us are in peak health? Not really many of us, to be honest. But if you're really struggling with your health, if you've got underlying immune problems, all of that can be exacerbating those perimenopause symptoms. So it's my post-lunch cup of green tea. Very much a creature of habit. I have to have a green tea every day after lunch. Interestingly, completely as an aside, today I had fish for lunch. Anyone who knows me knows that I don't eat a lot of fish. I tell all my clients to either eat more fish or to, I'm glad you're in peak health, Nicola. I have no doubt you're in peak health. So I tell all my clients to, or not all my clients, but if my clients aren't big fish eaters, I'm always telling them to have some fish oil or to eat more fish. And in my 8-week group program, Harmoniously Healthy, which we have just started last week, I set everyone a challenge to cook themselves at least one fish dish during the week. And so I can't set a challenge like that for them and not carry through with it myself. So I went and bought myself a piece of fish today, just now. Lightly seasoned it in a little bit of flour and some Chinese 5-spice, and pan-fried it. It took all of 5 minutes, and then I diced up a bunch of different red and yellow capsicum and some bok choy, and quickly fried that in the saucepan, in the fry pan, after I'd cooked the fish. So that took 3 more minutes, and I had some cauliflower rice. Put all of that together, and it was a delicious lunch. So if you have a little voice telling you that you never normally, like you're not a fish eater, are you really not a fish eater, or are you just too slack to get it? And I use the excuse all the time that my husband doesn't like fish. So I say, no, he doesn't like fish, so I can't cook fish in the house. And, salmon in the air fryer, that sounds nice. I'm getting these little messages here. That's a good idea, Nick. I'm going to try that. Salmon in the air fryer. Anyway, the story I've been telling myself for so long is that I don't eat fish. I eat fish, and it was really nice. I enjoyed it. I went down the fish path because of my green tea. Apologies. Coming back to perimenopause, my main point to begin with is, if you are struggling with symptoms that don't make a lot of sense, do not suffer in silence, because there's lots we can do to help. And that can include dietary stuff, it can include lifestyle stuff, sometimes it can include supplements as well. They can be beneficial depending on what's going on for you. So, what are the signs? I'm so going to try it. Salmon in the air fryer. I'm excited by that. So, what are the signs of perimenopause? How do you know if you're in there? Because, as I mentioned earlier, just to recap, there's no blood test that confirms it. It is literally based on what are you going through, what are your signs and symptoms. According to my friend Lara Bryden, who is a naturopath with a phenomenal amount of knowledge in this space, if you haven't heard of her, look her up. She has a brilliant website with lots of blogs. She's got a couple of books. I'll show you. This one, if you've seen any of my lives before, you will have seen me referring to this, the Hormone Repair Manual. Very easy to read, really useful information. So, according to Lara Bryden and according to a lot of other people, you are likely to be in perimenopause if you have at least 3 of this following list of symptoms. Longer or heavier bleeding than you've experienced in the past. Your cycle's starting to get shorter. Weight gain, unexplained weight gain. Amanda, I assume you're saying yum about the salmon in the air fryer as well. And nice to have you on here as well. Weight gain, if you haven't changed anything in terms of your food or your exercise or any of that sort of thing. So unexplained weight gain. New waking during the night. Increase in cramps. So you may find that you haven't struggled with period cramps for ages, but they're starting to get worse, and that's a bit frustrating, right? You might get night sweats. Not everyone gets night sweats and not everyone gets hot flushes, but lots of people do as well. And they can come and go. So you might, I remember going to the doctor, I can't remember how many years ago now, but quite some time ago, because I'd started to get night sweats. And then they went away for a while. So odd. If you're a migraine sufferer, they might get worse, or you may have never been a migraine sufferer and you might start to get migraines as well. You might find that your PMS, if you struggle with premenstrual syndrome, it might get worse, or you might just suddenly start to get it, something that you've not had before, and it just appears. And that can be frustrating as well, right? Because you're like, I've never really had a problem with this. Why is it going on? I'm old enough now, surely it shouldn't be an issue, but in fact, because of those hormonal fluctuations going on, it can start to become an issue. And you might find that you're getting new sore or swollen or lumpy breasts as well. So if you have any three of those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 symptoms, it is likely, it is probable, and you are 35 or older, it is probable that you are in perimenopause. Now, perimenopause can go on for 10 years or so. Some people might be shorter, some people might be longer. And those symptoms, all of them can come and go. So you might get, as I did, get night sweats for a couple of months and then they disappear. And they didn't come back for me until chemo introduced them. Good times. You might find that you get really bad cramps. And that's another thing that I found actually is that I was starting to get worse and worse cramps when I hadn't had bad cramps for ages. And it was just each month. It was getting to that point of I couldn't get through the day without when can I take my next Naprogesic or Ponstan or whatever it was that I was taking. And again, that was something I hadn't struggled with for ages either. And I was able, interestingly, I was able to have a really big impact on those cramps just by boosting up my fish oil intake. Had a massive impact. So there's a little tip for you. I was going to suggest that later, but I'll just throw it in there now. So symptoms can come and go. And there's a few stages of perimenopause. So I'll just give you a quick overview. What you would call very early perimenopause. During that stage, your menstrual cycle might start to shorten. So maybe you were a regular 28-day person. It might start to be 24, 25 days maybe. You are probably making less progesterone. Progesterone is that beautiful calming hormone that we love that is made after ovulation or with and after ovulation. And you might find that you've got more estrogen because your estrogen during perimenopause is fluctuating. Excuse me. And when you've got higher levels of estrogen, just made that word up, estrogen, that aren't balanced out by progesterone, what you find is you'll be getting heavier periods. That can contribute to sore breasts and also can contribute to sleep issues because estrogen is there's a word I'm looking for and it's gone out of my head. Estrogen is the word is not coming. It just impacts your alertness. Let's say that's not the word I'm looking for, but if it comes to me, I'll tell you. All right, so that's very early perimenopause. Then you have, a few years down the track, maybe 5 years down the track, you might move into what we call early menopause transition. This is where your cycle starts to get irregular. So originally it might have started to get shorter. Now you might start to find you're getting a couple of really long cycles as well. So effectively it feels like you're skipping a period. And then you might even, I know some people will have like a 60-day cycle and then a couple of 14-day cycles. Inflammatory, good point, Nick, but that's not the word. Excitatory. It's not a very good word, excitatory, is it? But that's what I was trying to say. So thank you. You brought me there. Interestingly, excess estrogen can contribute to inflammation a little bit as well. So that's part of the reason why it contributes to heavier bleeding. So that's a good point. Thanks, Nick. Where was I? So early menopause transition, you're getting a more irregular cycle. Your progesterone is gradually declining more and more. Your estrogen is still fluctuating, but sort of super high, maybe super low. And when it drops really low, quickly, that can be contributing to those hot flushes and night sweats as well. So that's probably why they may not come up so much earlier, but later on in perimenopause transition. Then you get to what you call the late menopause transition. So we're heading closer and closer to menopause. So you may get that 60 plus cycle, 60 plus day cycle there. Your hot flushes and your night sweats might get worse for a little bit, something to look forward to, right? And your breast pain, interestingly, might get better because if your estrogen is starting to drop as well, that was contributing to your breast pain. So, things will chop and change. At that point, it is roughly, on average, around 4 years until you reach menopause. Remembering that menopause is officially 12 months after your last period. So then the last phase, premenopause, is what you'd call late perimenopause, and that is where you think you've probably had your last period. It's been a long time. You're getting fewer symptoms. Your estrogen is fluctuating less, so you might not be getting so many migraines. Your mood might have stabilized a little bit. You might still get a period, and when you do, you'll probably be like, oh, I thought I was done with this. And if that happens, then some of those signs and symptoms will come back. But ultimately, you'll get to a point where you are 12 months past your last period, and then you are in menopause. And in fact, there are blood tests that GPs will do at that point to measure your hormones to say, yes, you're definitely there as well. But 12 months is the official sign. Now, what helps you to navigate all of this then? So there's all of this stuff going on. Some of it doesn't sound particularly appealing. There's stuff we can do. So don't despair is my first point. Food. And I'm a nutritionist, right? So obviously food is what I do. It's what I suggest primarily to my clients, along with sometimes the I do a lot of lifestyle suggestions as well, but we'll come to that. But from a food perspective, the more fresh fruit, vegetables, overall fiber you can have, the better, particularly vegetables, because they are all providing, aside from the fact that they provide beautiful vitamins and minerals, as you know, all of that fiber as well helps your gut to work really well. And if your gut is working really well, then it is getting rid of, the hormones that have been circulating and the liver has processed them and they need to get sent out of your body. That's a very, very quick and probably not technically accurate description of how the body works in terms of eliminating hormones. Don't tell my biochemistry teacher, who was an amazing woman who knew so much. Anyway, you want to clear out in particular your high levels of estrogen. Estrogen gets processed by the liver and then it gets sent into your gut to be excreted. But if you don't get rid of it, it recirculates back into your bloodstream again. And so that can contribute to higher estrogen levels, which can contribute to moodiness and to sore breasts and to heavier periods. Just one example. So the healthier your gut is, and guts are generally particularly happy and healthy when they have lots and lots of fresh vegetables and some fresh fruit and lots of fiber and lots of water on a regular basis. So you may need to boost up your vegetable intake. Lots of us do. Lots of oily fish. There you go. See, there was a connection with fish, with what I had for lunch today. Lots of oily fish, deep sea oily fish like salmon, in the air fryer, because I'm going to give that a go, because that is anti-inflammatory. So as I mentioned, when I was having really bad period pains X amount of years ago and I started taking fish oil regularly, I was quite amazed at the impact it had, and I've had a couple of clients tell me similar things for them as well. So deep sea oily fish, or take a fish oil supplement if you're not a fish eater. But don't tell yourself you're not a fish eater when really maybe you are and you just haven't bothered, like me. So today I'm a fish eater. Okay, magnesium is a supplement that I will often suggest to my clients, particularly at this stage, because it can help keep you calm, it can help you relax, it can help with your sleep. And if you're under a constant amount of stress, you will be using up a lot of magnesium as well. So magnesium is a beautiful, easy to obtain nutrient supplement that you can get from the chemist or the health food store. Just always check if you're taking a supplement with your healthcare provider to make sure it's okay for you, make sure it doesn't interact with anything else you're taking or that you might be taking. Okay, so I've talked about food very briefly. It's only a couple of broad brushstroke things about food, magnesium. But the other things that are really, really important during perimenopause and beyond is self-care. It's taking time out for yourself, and it's acknowledging that constant stress and constant busyness is actually really bad for us. So you don't want to be constantly busy. You don't want to be constantly stressed. You don't want to be on that merry-go-round of I've got to work hard, I've got to work hard, I've got to work hard. You need to be tuning into your body, listening to what your body says, and if you are still cycling, you need to be gentler with yourself, even if you're not still cycling. I went down a slightly different path there. If you're still cycling, particularly around your period, you need to be gentle with yourself. And if you're not still cycling, so you're post perimenopause and you are now menopausal, is it going out for drinks with the girls? I'll come to that. You raise a good point, Nicola. I will come to that. Even post-menopause, there is still an element of cycling going on in your body. So the more you can tune in and listen, if your body's saying to you, I need a break, I need to chill out, I need to rest, then you need to do that. Don't say yes to everything. Take a break. Exercise appropriate. Exercise appropriate. That's what I've written. That doesn't make a lot of sense. What I mean there is I'm always going to encourage people to do exercise because it's good for us. It's good for us mentally. It's good for us physically. But as we age, our needs for the type of exercise that works best for us changes. And during perimenopause, it's really important that we start to build our bone health and our muscle health to support our bones. So we start to move maybe a little bit away from if you were always like a sprinter or a distance runner, or you really loved your high intensity interval training, things like that. You start to move away from it a little bit and introduce more strength-based stuff and also more stretching-based stuff. And stuff that will help calm your nervous system down a little bit. So it may be that you've always thought, no, I can't possibly do a yoga class at the gym because I really need to go and do body attack because I always need to be working hard. You actually don't always need to be working hard. You might love body attack, in which case go for it. But if you can bring in some stretching stuff like a nice yoga class or some strengthening stuff like Pilates that actually still works your muscles, still puts you under a little bit of pressure, but doesn't actually raise your cortisol quite as much, for example, that is going to help with those perimenopause symptoms. So have a think about what your exercise regime is and look at, is it serving you or is it making you exhausted at the end of every exercise session? Be patient. So for the most part, I think we try to be patient with our teenagers, right? When we know that they're going through hormonal fluctuations, and we'll, make a joke about it and say, oh, well, she's a bit moody at the moment, her period must be due, or it might be, there's a bit of a burst of testosterone in him and so he's a little bit angry. So we make some excuses or we make jokes about it, but we're relatively patient with our teenagers, I hope. We need to be more patient with ourselves as well, because the same sorts of things are going on for us. Our hormones are fluctuating, so sometimes we might be a little bit more irritable than we are. Just own it, but be patient with ourselves. And on that note, tell people in your family what's going on for you, because the more open we are about how we're feeling, the more they understand. And if they understand how we're feeling or what's going on for us, then they can be more empathic and maybe a little bit less demanding. But it opens everything up. So be honest and upfront with your family, with your partner about what's going on for you, and you might find just by doing that, it actually eases the pressure a little bit. And the more we can reduce stress during perimenopause, the better our symptoms will be. Now, to answer your question, is it going out for drinks with the girls, self-care and time out? Well, absolutely, that is fun and that is time out. But interesting what you say about the drinks bit, because one thing I am going to say is during perimenopause, if you can decrease your caffeine and decrease your alcohol intake, that will help improve your perimenopause symptoms as well. Interestingly, as we get older, our ability to process alcohol declines, because we lose the enzyme that helps to break it down. So the level of that enzyme, I can't remember what it's called now, but that level of it, that enzyme goes down. so we don't process alcohol as well. So that's why the older we get, the worse the hangover if you're still trying to drink as much as you did in your early 20s. Not that I'm encouraging drinking a lot in order to be hungover in your early 20s or at any point in time. But lots of us have been through those phases where we've done that. So as you get older, you lose that ability to process alcohol as well, and the alcohol is not serving you as much. So if you are going out for drinks with the girls as a bit of a time out and a stress relief, which I completely encourage, just make sure you're not drinking to excess. Make sure you're having lots of water in between each drink. Make sure that you are aware of what you're doing so that you don't drink to excess, because it's just going to make you feel rubbish the next day. And I guarantee if you are struggling with night sweats or hot flushes and you have a big night of drinking to excess, you will be probably struggling with hot flushes, particularly that night and over the next few nights as well. So it has a really big impact on there, amongst other things. So decrease your caffeine intake if you drink a lot. I have 2 coffees a day. I think that's pretty reasonable. But if you're up at 5-6 coffees a day, you might want to think about reducing it. Same if you're a big Coke drinker, energy drinks, all those sorts of things. Decrease your alcohol intake. Make sure there's at least a couple of alcohol-free days in there every week so that your liver gets a break and it can focus on processing all of those hormones. And make sure that you are giving yourself time out to relax, to have fun with your friends, to de-stress, but in particular that you are listening to what your body needs and responding accordingly. And as always, if you need personalised advice, thanks so much for coming along, Nick. I've talked for longer than I intended to as well. Apologies for that. Enjoy your meeting. So, as always, you know where to find me. You can, at any point, you can jump on a free call with me and tell me a little bit about what's going on for you, and we can work out whether or not working together might actually help you feel better. The other thing I wanted to mention is my 5-day challenge, Illuminate Your Health, in which we take a deep dive into what's going on for you and develop a plan for improving your health. That starts next Monday. So it's not too late to join in. I would love to have a few more people jump in on that. Everyone who's done it, and I've been running that for I don't know how many months now, but everyone who does it comes away with a health goal in mind and a plan to get it underway. And so they really enjoy it because it's all about them and it's something meaningful at the end that they can use. So if you're interested in that, send me a message, throw a comment. It has been lovely having so many people on here today and getting a bit of conversation going as well. I really enjoy that. If you're watching on replay, just throw a comment in #replay. As always, any questions, shoot them through to me, comment on the Facebook page, and I will come back and answer them. Thanks for watching. See you all next week. Take care. Bye.